Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Spoilers with Zip and Cam. I'm Zoe Bell-Kanapaux. I am a 22-year-old author and audiobook narrator, and I am joined by my lovely host, Cameron.
Hi, I like watching movies with Zoe.
Today was by far the worst movie that we have watched in this entire movie marathon. And I don't say that lightly. We've watched a lot of shitty movies. Cameron and I together have watched a lot of shitty movies.
Tons of them. We watched Cats in the theater.
Yeah, that's the day we got together.
Yeah.
For the first ever time. We started dating that day. There was so much tension in that theater.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because the movie was so shitty.
It was because of, what the fuck is his name?
Are you talking about Carpool Karaoke guy?
Yes.
Yes. James Corden.
Yeah, James
Corden.
Yeah. James Corden as a giant cat. Mr. Mistopheles or whatever.
I'm
Ugh.
sorry. It was awful to get through. You cannot pay me enough to watch it again. Actually, if you want to pay me to watch it, I'm free for hire. I think I can fit it on my schedule, you know?
Right.
Anyway, we've watched a lot of, like, awful movies that we did not enjoy. Beau's Afraid is top 10 worst movies that we've ever seen.
Definitely.
This one might be top 3.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about it, but...
And the movie is...
The Final Destination, which is the 4th movie in the Final Destination franchise. It is not the Final Destination, because the movie grossed so much. I could not tell you why, but,
It's probably due to the lack of character development and, just writing in general. They probably didn't have to pay any writers for this movie.
It was the first movie made by AI. God, it was so fucking awful. So let me get into the nitty-gritty before we get real into it and talk about our horrible feelings. We'll just get into the reviews first before we get into really anything. Dan R. on Rotten Tomatoes rated this a 1.5 out of 5 stars. And this really sums it up, how I feel about it. By the late thousands, there was a fascination to make every film 3D. And that is just the first part of the failure of Final Destination 4, or The Final Destination. Synopsis: a horrifying premonition saves a young man and his friends from death during a racetrack accident, but terrible fates await them nonetheless. The film falls down on its own reliance on shoddy CGI and making it reliant on 3D technology, which just wasn't up to scratch at the time of the release. Even now in 2D, the effects are awful, almost computer game-esque. It's that bad, it's an insult to people who have loved what came before it. A real mess. 3 out of 10. And
That sums it up.
yeah, that's a really good review. This one I love. And this was posted rather recently. It was posted in 2024. And this is by Emil von S. They rated the movie 0.5 stars out of 5. Golly, it was such a slog of a movie. There's nothing fun about it, and it should not be watched at all by anyone. I was rewatching the series, and just, holy, it's so bad.
Yup.
Damn.
It is terrible. There's no character building, and I know in one of the previous videos I did say I don't really care for the characters' names, but man, did the writers not care about the characters' names or anything. They gave, I'm just getting into this, they gave a character some backstory, and he talked about it like it was just like nonchalant about it.
Yeah, so I have another review. I have quite a few reviews this episode. Cool. And this is just to make up for the fact that I haven't really been adding the reviews from Rotten Tomatoes into the episode. No, it's just that there's so much shittiness about this movie that we would not be able to get into everything, how shitty it is, without the help of the reviews. So this one is by Valak P. With bland and at times irritating characters, unconvincing effects with little innovation over its predecessors, the Final Destination leaves little to be desired and even less to be taken away from it. This one's from Vera A., which I completely agree with. 10 minutes into this fourth installment of Final Destination. Sorry, it was spelled so awful. Final Destination knew it was going to fail. The plot, special effects, and acting were horrible. And I feel the same. There's a lot in Spanish. Some of them are quite mean. And I agree with them. But yeah, so I do have a few more nitty gritty to get into. So as you can probably guess, it has a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is a little too high for it. And a 5.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which again I think is a little too high for it. And the official synopsis on Google: while enjoying a day at the track, Nick O'Bannon, which, why is his name O'Bannon? It's never mentioned.
Oh, brother.
Has a horrific premonition of his friends and him all dying in a freak accident involving many race cars. Mere seconds before the vision comes true, he manages to convince them to leave. Although they cheat death then, the survivors each begin to meet a grisly end, and Nick tries to figure out a way to escape a similar fate. Now, something about this series is that 2 of the films so far that we've reviewed have had a different director than the other 2. Now, 1 and 3 happen to be my favorite. I think 2 is okay. 4 is god-awful. I haven't watched 5 or 6. I haven't watched 5 in a while, at least.
I was about to say, I don't know if there's a 6. There's not a 6.
Oh. Oh, there's one coming out, I think. It's called Final Destination Bloodlines. I just saw that.
Ooh. Never mind.
So, yeah.
Redact my statement.
But, geez, 4 is awful. And 4 is done by a different director. It's done by David R. Ellis. And I don't think I ever want to watch another David R. Ellis movie. Let's see what else he's got.
Watch it be really good movies.
Final Destination 2. So
Snakes on a Plane 2.
Snakes on a Plane. Shark Night. Fatal Attraction in 1987. Why Did We Try to Make Glenn Close and Michael Douglas Attractive? The World We Never Know. Rocky 3. The Addams Family. I mean, he's got like some pretty good stuff, but like, what is this? Like, he was really big in the 70s and 80s. What is now this like crazy affection for... Oh, I kind of feel bad because he passed away. What is this crazy affection for like 3D, weird 3D shit?
Don't worry, he passed away. You won't have to see anything else that he's made.
Yikes, Cameron, yikes. Anyway, it's just awful. It is not a good movie. And frankly, that's why you watch cinema spoilers, so you don't have to watch bad movies.
Yo.
So,
woof. This one's way worse than I remember.
Yeah, it was made in 2009, so of course it's in that heyday of let's use as many visual instead of practical effects as possible. Let's do as much animation as possible within our movies. Like, there's a bunch of scenes where it's just these x-ray bodies. Like, really just think of 1,000 Ways to Die, the TV show. That's exactly what it shows. And I even pointed that out to Cameron. I was like, people were like really obsessed with 1,000 Ways to Die. And it came out around the same time as this movie did, or it was a little bit before this movie did. And I just don't get the affinity for this like weird 3D type shit. Like everybody would have been fine to just not see it, or to have it cut off just before, you know? That's happened multiple times. So I just don't get it. Anyway, they start off at this track, and it's called the McKinley Racetrack. If you remember in Final Destination 3, there's a character and a school. The character is named Ian McKinley, and the school is McKinley High School. So that's something to be said. It's never really kind of like backed up. It's just that they're at McKinley Racetrack. So they go to this NASCAR thing, and it's four individuals, the kind of the four main of the movie. And Nick sees this premonition, and right stark in the beginning of the movie, you see a guy in the background with a huge swastika tattooed on his arm. And don't get me wrong, I really hate white supremacists. But it's one thing when you're a person who's affected by that, making a movie with that element as a frightening element. But it just feels really weird when it's a white person doing that. And also, it was just so awful. This guy was so racist. And really, it didn't have to be that way in the movie.
No. Like I get it. They were doing a racetrack, so ha ha ha. Southerners are racist, but man, they went above and beyond with this. It's like, did you have something to say, Mr. Director?
Yeah. And the movie, while it's very important to talk about, it's also important for people that are affected to tell the story. Cameron and I were just talking about this, but a different topic. It's important for the people who are affected to tell the story rather than the people who are the oppressors telling the story. Cameron had brought up an issue with schools now telling different history, banning critical race theory and stuff like that. How in the world is it okay to listen to the history written by the people who are doing wrong things? Obviously, there's a bias there. Obviously, it's gonna sound like, oh, well, we didn't do that much wrong. Like, sure, okay, like, my bad. Instead of the heinous things that have been done. So, I just always, like, if it's a white director and a white writing team, I'm always very put off from it. Especially because, like, you have a black actor there who, we don't know how many times these scenes are shot where they're being hurled racial slurs. Are we thinking about their mental state? Yes, they accepted the job, but Jesus Christ, that's a lot to ask of somebody. The rest of the cast doesn't have to do that. So it's just something to think about, you know?
Definitely, because it's just like, I don't think they would have told him, like, hey, we're going to be throwing some racial slurs at you before this.
Especially since it was in 2009, things have changed so much. You know, recently there was a writer's strike, and actors have striked before, and, you know, I support all of that. I really do. And I really hope that people are given more protections, especially marginalized people, people of color. You know, I really do hope that they're getting protections in the workplace, because you wouldn't go to any other workplace and have a white supremacist throw racial slurs at you and it'd be okay. like, it may not be treated properly, but there are people aware there that it's not okay. So, I just hope that there's proper protections put in place. That I don't know what those are. I'm not gonna pretend like, first of all, I can say this and this and this needs to be done for the community of color. I am white. I'm Jewish and white. Like, I can't be talking over those people, obviously. But I just hope that it wasn't just the worst experience ever. And I hope that that actor received proper care during those awful scenes to film. But the first kill in the movie is the white supremacist, thankfully. Because I would not have continued watching had it not been like that. And really, like we've already mentioned, it shouldn't have been in there. It didn't further the story, and that's not to say that if it furthers the story that anybody should be put at risk like that. It didn't contribute anything to the story at all. And it was awful. Like, just the worst that you can do. It was awful. And it didn't contribute anything to the story. Like, it's a mutually exclusive, or it's not mutually exclusive. It was just awful. So, he's doing his little racist shit. And he plans to burn a cross on the security guard's lawn. But he ends up getting caught in his trailer hitch. Right, that's what it's called, a trailer hitch?
It was a tow truck, so he got caught on the
bar, or the
wrecker ball.
Yeah, and then he just got dragged down the street. Which, that's what he deserved. Really, that's what he deserved. The next kill is the mom and the two sons, right? The two sons don't die, right?
No, the two sons don't die. It's just the mom.
So, by the way, also, Nick, the main character who has the visions, he has them incredibly weird. Like, no one else in the series who's ever had visions has had them like Nick does. Nick sees,
you mean in CGI?
Nick has these visions that are just like flashes of bright colors and maybe pictures, like, and maybe sounds. So he sees the fan, a ceiling fan. He sees an eye and a pair of scissors. But he doesn't know jack shit about what's going on. So he can't do anything to figure it out. So it's the mother of the two children, and she's awful. Not as bad as the other people in the movie, but she's just a Karen. And she goes into, with her badass kids, she goes into the hair salon, and they're closed. Like, they close at 6, and she is late. She's an hour late for her appointment. But she didn't get the message that her hairstylist lived on the block where the white supremacist got dragged down the street, so he didn't come in. And she begs and begs and begs to still get a place because it's girls' night, and look at my hair! It's so awful! Honestly, I'm really surprised this movie passed the Bechdel test.
Honestly.
Yeah. If you don't know what the Bechdel test is, it's, I obviously could pull it up and have some more information, but basically it's when two women are named in a movie, and,
they interact with each other.
Yes.
More than twice, I believe. Or, it has to be, more than two women, or two named characters interacting.
Okay, it's actually, the Bechdel test, also known as the Bechdel-Wallace test, is a measure of the representation of women in film and other fiction. This test asks whether a work features at least two female characters who have a conversation about something other than a man.
Oh.
Yeah, so, pretty close.
Fair enough.
But, yeah, so this younger stylist decides to stay late for her, and she still complains. She still manages to complain.
She asks how long she's been cutting hair, and then, like, clearly she doesn't trust her with cutting her hair with that statement. And then still has the audacity to go and get highlights.
She gets foils put in her hair, and she gets a pedicure done.
No, that was someone else getting a pedicure next to her. I wasn't too sure about that because it was like, why is she getting a...
It looked like she was getting the pedicure the way that it was shot.
No, it was someone else on the side. But, like, I get that the shop's still open, but why are they doing pedicures, like, the last hour of them being open?
She arrived at 6.
At 6? Well,
yeah.
I know that she said that, she was late because the practice got out after 5, so...
Well, she just said the soccer practice was late. So then she was like, we close at 6, you know. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm an hour late. So she got there at 6, but it's not like, I am here walking in the building at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the hairstylist cuts her hair, does the foils, starts to style it, and of course it's one of those, like, perfect... It's the only scene in the movie where it's, like, the perfect storm. That's so prevalent in the other movies. This time, like, somebody places a glass down, and the glass starts to sweat. And her children throw rocks at this man who is landscaping. So he's got a big ride-on lawnmower, and he's filling it with gas and smoking at the same time. And, you know, the condensation from the water moves the... what's it called? The hairspray into the way of the flat iron, so it starts to heat up super big. And then someone accidentally squeezes, something falls onto one of the squeeze bottles, and it ends up squirting all over the floor. So the boys come running in, and they slip with their ices, and then the ceiling fan breaks down, and then the seat also keeps bumping down. She would bump up the seat, and then it would go and, like, fall straight all the way down. So it was one of those, like, perfect storm things. So the seat falls again, and instead of just, like, leaving it down or going to a different seat, they stay, and she still gets her hair cut, and she almost gets her eyeball cut out. And so then, after everything's done, she looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
She looks exactly the same. They cut chunks from, like, the side of her hair, and you can tell that this was just done on a mannequin because they are cutting, like, chunks from the side of her head. And that's just not shown. And so she gets to the front, and the boys are acting up again.
You know, my whole thing with that scene is that why didn't they just have the stylist from on set do the haircut? Like, maybe switch hands, you know?
Maybe they didn't want to be on film at all.
I guess.
Yeah, but she goes to pay. And the fucking receptionist is so funny. She's like, sorry about the boys. I'm never letting them out of my sight again. And she said something.
She said, you should send them to I'm not gonna take my eyes off of them until college.
Yeah.
And she said, well, maybe military school.
Yeah. She's so fucking funny. And then the boys start acting up again. And so she turns around and she's like, I'm keeping my eye on you. But the rock that the boys threw gets swept up by the riding lawnmower. And it goes and it hits her through the eye. She dies. And then the next kill happens. Dun dun dun. The next kill is the pool scene, right? Or is it the tandem pool and the car wash?
Yeah, it's the tandem pool and car wash.
So the next one happens with Hank and the friend that's so obnoxious. Every single time that Nick says, oh, I keep seeing something, she just doesn't believe him. Even though there's all this concrete proof that all these people are dying, she's like, don't bring me into this. This is bullshit.
I don't want nothing to do with this.
She never answers the phone when they're like, hey, you're gonna die. Even when they keep telling her, they're like, don't go near water, because he sees a sign that says Clear Rivers Water. And Clear Rivers was a character in Final Destination 1 and 2. So, anyway, she ends up going to a car wash after she hands a homeless man a bunch of her, like, coins, one of which being a penny that he throws into the street. And I think that's some boss shit. Don't give people pennies. But he's like, what the fuck is this? And he throws it in the fucking street. He throws it in the fucking street.
So what's this bullshit?
A pigeon shits on our windshield. Like, multiple pigeons shit on her windshield. So she's, like, trying to, like, squeegee it off with the windshield wipers, but she has the car door open, so she gets it in her mouth. And so she's like, I have to go to the car wash. And so she gets in the car wash, and, you know, a little bit of a perfect storm. Like, the water hits the wall, which short circuits, and then she can't move any further. But then it just fills up with water, because her car,
the moonroof.
The moonroof won't close. But her friends get there just in time. They get there just in time. And they save her. And she still doesn't believe them. Well, it's like she kind of believes them, but she's like, just shut the fuck up, okay? Just shut the fuck up. And so, she's the most obnoxious fucking person. And when we were watching this, I was like, these characters would have been the fucking teenagers from Final Destination 2. If they were involved in this shit. They would have just been like, whatever. So as this is happening, we see Hunt, who is like a sex addict or something, because the only lines that he has revolve around sex. He's actually having sex with a woman, and he's being weird and, like, really forceful and, like, making sure everything goes his way. And he actually grabs her hips in a way that I would be pissed off if you did that to me. Because, Jesus Christ, it was so aggressive. And then he finishes, and she's like, let's keep going. And he grabs his phone while he's still inside of her. And he just starts playing a game. And keep in mind, this is 2009. There aren't, like, cool games on the App Store. So he's just playing, like, Donkey Punch. And she's pissed off. Because why are you being so forceful? And then, you know, you're just going to pick up your phone and play a game? Like, you're weird. So then he gets out of this cabana. Because he's at a public pool. And, you know, I always thought the rule was if you had diarrhea in the last 24 hours, you can't go in the pool. You mean to tell me if you spilled your load, you can go in the pool right after? That's nasty. So, he's on his phone, just walking around the pool, ass crack out, by the way. Did you notice that?
I didn't, no.
His ass crack is, like, just barely peeking out. It's like, pull up your goddamn pants.
I unfortunately missed the ass crack.
Yeah, so...
Darn, my crack addiction.
As he's, like, listening to his voicemails that he got while he was, you know, having sex, this kid squirts him with a water gun. So he takes the little toothpick out of his mouth, the little toothpick sword out of his mouth, and he pops the kid's inflatable. And then he takes the water gun and he throws it out. And why does he get in the pool? Do you remember?
So whenever he takes the gun, he puts it over, like, the edge of this, wood thing, and it turns the drain on into the pool. Right? So then he's sitting on the side, since his phone's dead, and he's just playing with his coin, and he's real shit at doing the finger thing. So, like, flipping the coin through your fingers. So it flipped into the pool, and he dove in after it.
Okay. So then, because the drain's on, he gets sucked to the bottom. and
Ass first.
Yeah, ass first. And then just as soon as Nick gets there, his intestines end up exploding through the water pressure gauge, and he dies. And there's a bunch of kids in the pool as this happens. The next kill is the man in the hospital, right?
Yes,
So,
it's the cowboy that got crushed. He didn't die from the original crush.
yeah, so at this point, we've seen that the security guard has tried to kill himself multiple times. So he just they make the conclusion that once they saved this other girl, that this thread was over. Like, they're good. They're good to go because he tried and he couldn't do it. So he tried to eat a whole bottle of pills, but he just threw it up. He tried to tape the muffler to his mouth. Didn't matter. Like, the car or the garage door just opened. He tried to hang himself. He fell from the rope. All these things keep happening. So, it's not his turn. So they just make the assumption that it's done. No research done. They pull out all these, news articles, but they don't read them. They just throw them on the table.
Yeah, they don't ever do the other, Final Destination where it's so-and-so happened here, so-and-so happened here. None of that.
Yeah, and he just kind of pulls it out of nowhere. He's like, well, Flight 180. And it's like, dude, you didn't even know about Flight 180. You didn't even know. You didn't even look it up. You could have gone on your iMac to look it up.
For real.
So, they end up figuring out that there was a cowboy that was supposed to die. And that he was the next in line, but he never asked him to move. So, he didn't end up dying. He was one of the people that got out because he started a fight. So they race to the hospital, him and George, who is the security guard, race to the hospital to try to get him. But we see a Korean war vet who is incredibly racist to this, I think, nurse. They don't really say. He's a healthcare worker.
Yeah.
He's Chinese, and that's revealed in the film. But he said, do you know how many of you guys I killed in Korea? And the guy goes, I'm Chinese, sir. He goes, same difference. Did that need to be included by a white director?
No, what the hell is up with this dude?
There's so many instances of just casual racism thrown in. And it's like...
It didn't further any plot points in the movie. Just a lot of racism, random racism.
Yeah. And it's just okay, I understand that it's supposed to take place in the South. Even though McKinley has been confirmed to be in Southern California, now it's the South. But yes, there are racist people in the South. But why is it at every turn?
Yeah.
It just seems like this director really wanted to dig in how much racism he could put in the movie. Or put in his own, personal thoughts, like Chevy Chase. Everything he works on, he's got to be either behind the scenes a nightmare, a racist nightmare, or, he's got to say something funky in front of the camera. It seems like that sort of situation where it's like, well, I mean, we could say something right here, but not right here because that'll be too much. That's just what it feels like. And it's gross. But they're filling up they're filling up a tank for hydrotherapy for this race.
No, it's just his bath.
Oh,
that's all.
It looks huge.
Yeah. Well, it's so that they can dunk him in it with the little crane thing.
Yeah. So he's sitting in a mobility crane, so that way, for those that don't have so much mobility, they can still be moved place to place and still be able to sit. So he's in that, and they just leave the water on. They walk out and they leave the water on. And first of all, he was so loud when he was racist, but when this water is overflowing onto the floor, he's like, help, somebody help.
But he was saying it loud and proud with that racism.
Yeah.
Shit.
So, the man, though, the cowboy, He is the floor below. The cowboy is the floor below. So the water starts trickling through, and then it just, like, bursts. But he ends up, like, crawling out of bed, and then we see Nick and George bust into the room just as this giant tank tub falls through the ceiling and crushes him.
As if the first time he got crushed wasn't bad enough.
Yeah, he was found in the rubble, and that was revealed on the news, and that's how Nick and George found out about it. So then, Nick and George walk out of the hospital, kind of just, like, all nonchalant. Like, the acting is so awful. And they're just like, George says this. He goes, my mom always said...
Wife.
Oh, wife. I forgot to mention the fucking mechanic.
Oh,
it's just so
yeah.
unmemorable.
This movie is so very unmemorable.
The mechanic dies at some point after his wife died. I think that's actually the second death.
And, yeah, one of them. But,
we just finished the movie.
Yes.
2 minutes before we started filming. And it's just such a fucking dumpster fire. And I get it.
So unmemorable.
If you've watched other episodes of Cinema Spoilers, you may be like, Zoe, you forget a lot of stuff. And then you say it later. I'm telling you, I am trying to pull it out of the depths of my brain. But it's just so hard. It's one of those things where it's like... you just want to forget it.
I just want to forget the casual racism in a 2009 movie.
It's just such an awful movie. I don't want to think about it. But anyway, George steps in front as he's talking about what's the deja vu. He's just talking about deja vu randomly.
Yeah, he's talking about his wife because he was the one. It was revealed when he's talking to the mechanic that he killed his wife and daughter because he was drunk driving. And
but he says it so nonchalantly.
He said it just like I said it, just monotone.
He said
nonchalantly.
I killed my wife and daughter because I was drunk at the wheel. And then he gets cut off because the God damn it. The mechanic gets cut off through the fence. And it's the worst CGI you've ever seen. They go between practical effects and CGI quite often, so it's like, why not just go lean in more to the practical?
Honestly, and it's terrible too because the act of the death itself is it's
gruesome.
It's gruesome, right? No, what I was gonna say is that
it can be practical effect.
Well, yes, but the act itself is the CGI, and then it cuts to a practical body / a practical makeup and whatnot. So it's like, well, you already did the makeup. Why didn't y'all do the death itself in practical effects? Because, just take for instance, there was some falling rubble. They could have done the falling rubble in practical effect. They didn't have to make it a CGI block to fall on top of these computer animated bodies.
But then in the very next scene, because it's one of those where it flashes weird, like a lot of late 2000s movies are cut. I call it the Saw effect because of the Saw movies, and if you see them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no way you don't. Where it's like it just goes between different shots, and it's like Saw pulled it off in my opinion. They
started it.
They stuck to their guns with it. It wasn't just abandoned halfway through a project or just done once
or halfway throughout a movie.
Yeah,
this is just a single instance of that in this movie,
and so it's just like, what the fuck, and it's just so fucking unmemorable. And so he's walking in the street, George is walking in the street, and he gets hit by a bus. And, spoiler alert, this is where premonition starts. And it's like a 10-minute fucking long premonition.
This dude's premonitions are the longest that anyone else has had. Everyone else had, a premonition that was maybe a few minutes before. This dude is like hours ahead.
Yes, like, just for example, like in Final Destination 1, he sees it like 3 minutes beforehand of, like, you know, he sits in his seat, he feels uneasy, you know, his thing breaks, the plane takes off, and it gets its first round of turbulence, and then the plane starts blowing up. And it's very, very fast, very sequential, but it feels like it's happening in the moment. Final Destination 2, as she's pulling up from the thing, she doesn't have the premonition yet, right? She pulls up to the intersection. She starts the premonition. And it lasts like a minute, 2 minutes before she sees like the carnage of it, the accident. You know, she sees a few cars going, but there's suspense built there because there's a state trooper behind them and they have drugs in the car. And there's also like bad driving everywhere. In Final Destination 3, she sees the roller coaster right after they sit down. She sees it crash. So she starts this premonition as they sit in and get locked into the excuse me. As they get locked into the seats, she starts her premonition. The ride hasn't started yet, but it starts almost immediately with Frankie dropping his camera. But this kid's premonitions are like, he wakes up, he brushes his teeth, he throws a t-shirt on. Then he, like, scratches his boxers because he didn't change those overnight. You know, he doesn't get in the shower or anything. He gets ready. He goes to the gym. He does a 45-minute workout. Then he takes, like, a lukewarm shower. He doesn't let he doesn't actually scrub. He just lets the soap run down from his shampoo. And then he checks himself out in the mirror. Then he gets dressed for the day. Then he goes and works an 8-hour shift. Then he gets coffee with his friends. And then something bad happens. It is the longest fucking premonition sequence of the entire series. And he has multiple of them in the movie. It's the worst. It's the worst. So, he sees that the final people that are left, so it's just him, his girlfriend, and the obnoxious girl. And they're ready to go. They're like, we're going to Amsterdam, the girlfriend and Nick. And it's weird the way that they set this up, because they're like, we can finally start traveling. Like, they think that it's over. They think that it's over. Even though they saw George die. Oh, no. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. The girls think it's over, but Nick knows that it's not over when he has this premonition. So, his girlfriend and her friend are going to the movies at the mall before they go off to Amsterdam. So they've made these plans before George dies and before the cowboy dies, because they think that they've skipped, at least they've skipped some people in line if they haven't ended this thread. So he's trying to get a hold of her, but she's in a movie, this movie that the obnoxious girl was all about. She was like, I should have been at this movie. Love Lies Bleeding, by the way. And there's an explosion in the movie, and he sees, actually going through the movie screen, he sees an explosion coming out. By the way, is now a good time to plug my book. I have a book coming out on October 30th called Double Feature. And it is a way better version of whatever the hell this is. Let me just be for real. It takes place in a movie theater, and there is an explosion that blocks them in. Trip to the movies turns feral when 10 individuals are trapped within the auditoriums. An apocalypse caused by corporate greed leaves 6 children, 2 theater workers, a couple, and a mortician, scrambling to figure out how to survive off stale popcorn and candy bars. How much of the world is left? What can be done to prolong their lives? Why are things so eerie within the concrete walls of the picture house? Find out in double feature. Right now, if you go on my Ko-fi, which is the first link in the bio, you can pre-order a signed paperback copy of this book. There is no hardcover, unfortunately, because it's too long. It's a very long book. So if you like long books or short chapters, you will love this book. It is the second in a series, but you do not have to read the first book to understand the second book. It has a whole new cast of characters who are completely different from the first. And they join together in the third book. So, you do not have to read the first book to understand the second. And that does go vice versa. You do not have to read the second book to understand the first, because it is a whole new different cast of characters. Anyway, I'm really excited for that to come out. And if you go on my Ko-fi as well, I do have double feature themed blankets. They look like popcorn bins. They are hand crocheted by me. I spend a lot of time doing them, and I would love for you to have one. They are the most comfortable, right, Cameron?
They're great. Y'all need them for winter coming up this year. I know it's going to be cold. Y'all need to order them. Get them while they're hot.
Yeah, because I can get it to you. I can get it shipped to you in 2 weeks. So, not to brag about my order fulfillment time on a made-to-order project. But you'll love it. Way more than we loved this movie. No, I'm being for real, though. You will love it. It's something that you will cherish. Especially if you don't have family members that make you blankets. I'll be that family member on my Ko-fi right now. You can also read the first chapter of Double Feature on the Gold Bookworms tab. I just love using Ko-fi so much. I could use it as a blog. I could use it as a shop. But I hated this movie. So, he has this whole, premonition that he sees the movie theater exploding, because they're building new theaters and they have these several barrels, and they have 10 barrels of highly flammable fluid. It just says highly combustible on it. It doesn't even say what it is. It just says highly combustible fluid.
It's why is there... It's stacks.
Yes.
There are stacks of these 55-gallon drums.
Yes.
It's just chilling behind this theater, behind a regular ass plywood door too. So why? It makes no sense on why this is in this theater.
Yeah. So in his vision, he sees his girlfriend get hit and die, and then he sees the girlfriend's friend also get hit and die. So he heads to the mall as fast as he can to try to prevent this. And he does, in the most convoluted way possible. He gets nailed to the wall, and he lights a fire because there's already fire trailing around him. He lights this giant stick on fire and tries to get the sprinklers to go off. And he does. He's successful. He stops the fire, and he makes the news, and the next scene is them at this coffee shop called Death by Caffeine, which, we get it. You're trying to do irony. We get it. But anyway, he orders, a Frappuccino, and, of course, 2009 diet culture, they're like, let me get a black coffee.
And a green tea.
And a green tea. And then he gets this Frappuccino, and they're like, I'm gonna go in a diabetic coma just looking at that.
That's disgusting. What did you even order? And he repeats his order, and you brought up, where the hell were they when he ordered?
They're all standing in line, receiving their order at the same time, and they didn't hear him order this Frappuccino. I know that's probably a Starbucks term. I don't know a ton about coffee, but, if you know what a Frappuccino is, that's exactly what he got.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was fine. I didn't taste it, but, why does it fucking matter what he gets? Sometimes I fucking hate watching movies from, the late 2000s, because it's such, pro-Anna type shit just, thrown in. For whatever reason, they have, Nick's girlfriend standing in her underwear for, one of the like, the first death that they see of the white supremacist, she's just standing in her underwear. And the shot's weird as fuck. Like, let's be so for real. She's standing uncomfortably over the couch, but she's also tiptoeing.
Yeah.
And
it shows a picture from... Or, a picture... it shows from the front and from behind, and I think it's just this racist, pervy director.
And...
I don't know.
Like, she's tiptoeing over the couch, but it doesn't even go to her hip height. Like, she doesn't need to be tiptoeing. And she's just, like, standing there, and you see her, like, quaking a little bit. And it's just to be, like, a sex symbol. Because it's one of those things where it's like, there's no reason for her to be in her underwear in this scene. And, like, yes, in the last movie, the girls were naked in the tanning bed. Like, that I can understand, because they even make a point of it. They ask the girl, Ashley asks the other Ashley, why are you wearing underwear? And she says her boyfriend gets off on tan lines. So, you know, usually you don't wear a ton of clothes in a tanning bed. So I get that. But, like, I can't recall any other scene like that besides in this movie. Can you?
Without pointless nudity, no.
Exactly.
It's not the MO for Final Destination.
And here's the thing, like, nudity's fine. I'm fine with nudity in movies. I don't mean to sound like a prude or anything. But it's just weird. She's eating breakfast. I'm like, yeah, I eat breakfast in my underwear. But, like, it's just
an odd
so
choice.
weird to have her posed there in multiple different shots to show that she's in her underwear. Because it's a weird shot just in general. It's not centered at all. Like, it's taken just so that you can't see the TV so much, which is the whole point of the fucking scene, is that she's seeing that the white supremacist died. Because her friend calls her.
And she's blocking the fucking TV with her ass just right in front of it. So it's like, bro.
And even in the next shot where they show... Because they show the TV twice. They show it where you can see the TV. Then they do this ass shot. Then they do another ass shot. Just a different angle. And it's like...
It's just not a choice.
You're just being weird at that point. You wanted to see that actress in her underwear. So you wrote this scene in. Like, own it if you're gonna be a fucking racist perv. Sorry. It's just fucking gross. And it's like I said, I don't care about nudity in movies. Like, when Hunt's having sex with the woman who's unnamed, you know, she's probably gonna be naked. When the Ashleys are in the tanning bed, you expect them to be naked. But they're not doing, like, weird crotch shots. And, yes, there's overhead, and you see their breasts, but they're not doing weird, like, ass shots and crotch shots and stuff like that. And it's just fucking weird. It takes, like, a weird turn. And, of course, it's the fucking movies directed by this guy, because you see a very, very obvious difference between the first and the third movies and the second and the fourth.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Anyway, he saves them, and they're in this coffee shop again, and they're, like, commenting on his food, like, that's disgusting. Oh my god. Calories.
Ew.
Ew. And, you know, their whole thing is that they're such shallow characters. The characters are shallow. Just, they don't have personality traits beyond being Nick's girlfriend and Nick's girlfriend's friend. She wants to see a movie. That's her personality trait.
Yeah.
The girlfriend wants to travel to Paris or wherever, really. She just wants to travel. That's her personality trait. And it's just like every other movie. did like every other movie does when they want to add, like, character depth and give them personality traits and stuff like that. Like, Clear Rivers, she was reading the book in the background, and you see her just answer the question that no one else wants to answer when the French teacher asks her, or asks the class something. You see her making her weird sculptures. You know, you see a ton of stuff. Like, you also... There's so much character development just in the first few scenes with Alex. In his bedroom, you see that he likes airplanes. You know, he's taken an interest in them, at least a little bit. He's taken an interest in Paris, at least because he's going there. He has a ton of stuff lined out about what he wants to do and the maps and stuff like that. So you can infer, based off of what he wants to do, you can infer stuff about his character. You know, even the twin boys, who one dies in the first, 10 minutes of the movie. Even the twin boys have
more character.
Yes.
More character development than this entire movie.
Yes. And it's also in, I keep wanting to call it Scream. It's not Scream. Final Destination 2. You know, the cop has a ton of personal character added in just because they go to his apartment. He's a nature guy. He's an outdoor guy. You see his canoe. You see his bike. You see all this different shit in his apartment. So you can infer by seeing that he's an outdoorsy guy. In the first few scenes, you can see that the main character that we follow throughout the entire movie is just like a carefree teenage girl. She's a little more guarded than her friends, but she's a little bit carefree. And she's like, Dad, I got it. She's a typical teenage girl. But you see so much character development within that. She goes from a slightly carefree teenage girl to, I need to help my friends. What friends I have left. And if she were a carefree teenage girl, she would have been like Maria, who didn't care about the car accident. Or she would have been like these characters. So, you know. And then, of course, in Final Destination 3, there's so much character building done. Especially for the main guy in the movie that's not her girlfriend, or not Wendy's... Kevin. He's not Wendy's girlfriend. He's Wendy's friend's boyfriend. He starts out being kind of a perv and being really gross, honestly. He takes an upskirt picture of one of the girls that walks by, who's not really mentioned again, right in front of his girlfriend, too. Which, don't take an upskirt picture, just in general. But, dude, really? But, you know, he's just...
No class.
No, he's just gross. And by the end of the movie, you feel for him, despite knowing that he's a perv still, probably. Yeah. But you feel for him. You feel bad because he keeps watching all of his, or not all of his friends, but people he knows die. So, you know, there's so much character development done. And Wendy goes from super serious to super depressed. And you see that. And, even the characters that died in the roller coaster scene still got their character development. Jason is Wendy's boyfriend. And he still had shit going on. Wendy's friend had shit going on. There's just so much. And then in this one, it's I put the apple in the bag, and then I slid the bag across the counter, and that's my job. They don't have any emotion in their voices. And it's did we really want to make this movie? That's not my question. Did you really want to make this movie? Because, you could have, at this point, the final movie in the Final Destination series, you could have gotten people. You could have. Big name actors.
Well, the fifth one, they get big name actors.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Haven't watched the fifth one in a while.
Yeah, they get a few people. They got Pool in this one, or in that one.
Finally, dude.
This one's just, oof. ridiculous.
Which it's like, I loved the cast for 1, 2, and 3. I thought the casts were great. I thought that... Goodness me. I thought that the differences in characters were great. You throw someone in the ring who's shy, someone in the ring that's outgoing and obnoxious, someone who's never faced a problem in their life, and someone whose life is full of problems. You're gonna get a unique situation. But like I said, this one has nothing. And he starts to see different things that are alluding to his demise. Like, he walks past to get into the coffee shop. He has his arm all bandaged up because he got the nails through it. He sees this scaffolding that's not screwed in properly, so he lets them know. He's like, hey, this is real loose. And the worker says, we'll get someone on that right away. And so he's like, pays to be safe. Trust me. Like a fucking wannabe cool guy.
Like a fucking dork.
Yeah, it's so dorky. And so, you know, he meets his friends, and they make fun of his Frappa Jappa whatever. Because they call it a Frappa Jappa whatever, or a Kappa whatever. And so then he starts to see, like, there's NASCAR on the TV, and, you know, he sees something for the pool. He sees an advertisement for the pool, and he's like, what if it never stopped? He also sees a carving in the table that's like, it's coming, and then it's scratched out, it's here. And then he looks over, and he sees the truck, and then it's another, like, animation of them dying.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
The animation.
And then the movie ended.
Womp womp.
And it lasted 1 hour and 30 minutes too long. Yeah, I think this is the film that made directors fear character development. Anyway, we're having a movie marathon this month and next to celebrate the release of Double Feature. So I hope you join us on that marathon, and I hope you join us for the release of Double Feature. And I would ask, what's your favorite part? But
This is just terrible.
I don't have a... My favorite part was when it ended. But now it's my least favorite part for this podcast. It's where it has to end.
Till the next time, / go watch more videos. I know y'all like them.
And be sure to like and subscribe, so that way we can keep making these videos. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.